Hello YouTube, it's Simon here with Hobbies and Man once again, and today we're going to be doing a review video for the Frank Frazetta Death Dealer comic book, the current one published by Opus / Incendium Press. And this is kind of the first video in the Frank Frazetta-Verse comic book line. So I'm going to do these 4 issues that I'm reviewing today, then the first short story collection in Death Dealer, then the second one. Then I'll start doing reviews for the next segment of Death Dealer, maybe. Depends. I might want to wait until the whole thing is finished before I review it that way. And I'll also start reviewing Dawn Attacks, which is the second part of the Frazetta-Verse. So today we're going to be looking at Death Dealer 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is, technically speaking, the first story arc in the Death Dealer comic book. This is a new version of the comic book. I think there was one before, but I never read that one. This is completely new. I think the old one was by Dark Horse. And so the author here is Mitch Iverson. The illustrator is Stefano Martino. And Luis Antonio Delgado and Jacob Bascal are the colorist and letterer. Like I said, it's published by Opus. And I would say that the demographic for this is adult. I don't think it says back here, but there's titties, there's violence, there's a lot of stuff that really isn't for kids. But you know, some teenagers might still either be able to read it due to maturity levels, or will just read it regardless because they're teenagers, right? So, but I do think the demographic here is adult. And the genres are pulp fiction. I mean, this is basically something similar to Conan, or to you know, something that Edgar Rice Burroughs might write. So it does fit into that kind of vibe, right? It's also a sword and sorcery type book, and of course it's a dark fantasy as well, since they're more or less all pretty similar, I would say. It does not have an adaptation, although it'd be fun if it did. And the premise is basically that the Death Dealer is this hermit that lives in the middle of nowhere, and somehow he ends up meeting a woman. She has a child, and so he develops a connection with this woman and this child, and eventually they are taken from him, and so he goes on a quest / journey to try to find them. However, as he's doing this, it turns out that he's also being chased down by Pestilence, who is a different character that's looking for him, right? So, yeah. So it is pretty interesting. It seems kind of wild, but it is really good. I do want to mention that this is a lot more like more traditional style fantasy than something like Barbaric, because I mean, if you've read both series, you can kind of see that they're very similar in structure and style. I mean, both of them follow a warrior with a cursed object that talks to him, and both of them are forced to use this curse to do something. In the case of Barbaric, it's to do good, and in the case of Death Dealer, it's to deal death, right? So it is pretty similar. Both the helmet and the axe in Barbaric have this kind of irreverent, kind of asshole attitude to them, but it is still fun for both of them. However, Barbaric is a little bit more comedic, and Death Dealer is a bit more serious, so you know, be aware of that if you're interested in either or both of them. Barbaric is by Fault Comics, by the way. So yeah, now the plot line opens in a dark forest. Something is searching for the Death Dealer. We later learn this is Pestilence, and it kills some humans. Then the dealer, Death Dealer, or Kerr, I think is his name. He's only the Death Dealer when he activates the powers. It's kind of like a Shazam, Dark Black Adam situation, where he's himself, and then he calls out the name of the object, the Death Dealer, and so he and the Death Dealer helmet merge into a single person, and you know, he has extra powers that way, right? So yeah, he's hunting, and the helm is trying to turn him, and as he's hunting, he finds a woman and a child who are named Admira and Mesh, and they're being chased by wolves. So Kerr intervenes, and she casts a spell to help him drive them away. And he kind of gets angry because, like, there goes his dinner or something like that. And he eventually decides to help her find shelter because, well, she and the child are going to die if they don't. and she actually appeals to him, verbally, and then he like eventually agrees, even though he doesn't really want to. But once they're together, he actually develops a very quick relationship with her. They sleep together, and Death Dealer, or Kerr, grows attached to the child, to Mesh, and they're hungry eventually, so Death Dealer goes deeper into his cave, and he goes into the swamp that's deeper in his cave for some reason. I don't know how that works, but he eventually gets there, and he battles this crocodile, which looks really, really awesome. And he activates his powers to do that, I think. And we switch over to Admira and the child, and she's taken, and the child is taken, of course. And so Death Dealer decides to go travel to this giant crab walking city. It's kind of something similar to Mortal Engines or something like that. Or that one place, what's it called? That one place from the John Carter movie that moves the moving city. I can't remember what it's called, but something like that. But it's a giant crab. So if you like Brandon Sanderson, you'll like the giant crab, right? So, yeah, he goes to the sorceress. He gets into the city. He meets her, and she and the helm have a conversation because apparently she's the one that made the helm into what it is, because it used to be a person, and then she took the soul of that person, put it into the helm, and now it's a cursed object, right? So, yeah. Then she gives them information. They have to go to Angar or Agar or Akgar. I can't remember what it's called. And while they're talking, Pestilence shows up and destroys her city. She basically ends up witnessing the death of all of her citizens, all of the people that looked up to her and asked her to protect them. And so she awakens the Death Dealer again to kill the monster. They team up. They have a bit of a heart-to-heart conversation thing. We get a bit of a lore dump talking about the cosmology of the universe. It's not really all that important to the plotline, I guess. I mean, it is, but it feels like there's more to it that isn't necessarily important to this part of the story, so I won't really talk about it. But it turns out that Pestilence needs the Death Dealer for a war, a cosmological war. So Kerr decides to not go, but the sorceress gets him to do so. And of course, the sorceress and Kerr have a moment where they sleep together again, because it's a sword and sorcery kind of thing, Pulp Fiction thing. And so he eventually manages to go, right? So he travels with her to kill a wizard because they need his DAC, which I'm guessing is his magic powers. And then we run into Pestilence and Admira, and they flash back to Kerr getting his helmet in issue 4. And it turns out that Kerr and his brother were going to search for this helmet because they wanted it to have the power necessary to save their village from things that were happening to them. But in order to get the helmet, one of them had to sacrifice that which they really didn't want to, and so Kerr sacrifices his brother to get the helmet, and it actually ends up being worse than he bargained for, and his brother ends up dying. But it turns out that he turned into Pestilence, where Kerr ended up being the Death Dealer. So that's really interesting. It was a pretty interesting kind of moment there. I wouldn't really say it's a plot twist or anything like that, because there was really no inkling of that beforehand, but it makes Pestilence looking for Death Dealer make sense in retrospect. And then we get back to Kerr and the sorceress, who are traveling. She gets him back his horse. I don't know how this worked. I don't know when he lost his horse, but he's able to summon it by calling its name, which is pretty interesting. And it transports them to this evil army place, and they have a big battle. And it turns out that it's all a ploy to get Death Dealer to shed innocent blood on top of an altar, which will then open a gate to hell and allow this demon to come through, which is basically the end of this part of the story. So it happens. Death Dealer activated his powers, went on a rampage, accidentally killed Mesh, and so the the altar was powered by the innocent blood of the child. It turns out Admira and Pestilence were working together. It was all a ploy for that. She didn't really care about the child or about Death Dealer, which, you know, sucks. And so this the summoning works, and this devil opens the gate to hell, and it comes out into the real world. And Mesh's soul is sent to hell, and so Death Dealer is like, well, I did this to this child, I need to save it. So he jumps into hell himself, which again is very similar to something that's happening in Barbaric right now, which is pretty interesting. That, you know, these not concurrent, kind of not having to do with each other at all kind of series end up having a similar, you know, plot line. It's pretty interesting, and I quite like it because I like both series. They're pretty interesting takes on the same kind of thing. And so Death Dealer jumps in, and that's where the story ends for this part of the story, or for this part of the plot, I guess. So yeah, in terms of characters, we have Kerr, we have the Sorceress. I don't know her name. I don't think she ever tells us her name. We have the Death Dealer, which is the Helmet. We have Mesh, Admira, Pestilence, and there really isn't anyone else. I guess the wizard that they kill for his doc, but I don't remember his name. And in terms of world building, there's some, but it's mostly just minimal. You know, we learned that there was this ancient place where the Death Dealer helmet was. We know that you have to sacrifice something for the helmet, and that Kerr sacrificed his brother for it. We know that there's these horsemen of apocalypse. Of course, Pestilence is one of them, and Death Dealer is probably the other one, and then there's two more, which is interesting. Although I do think that Death Dealer should have had a white horse, because I'm pretty sure Death rides the white horse. But, you know, it is what it is. He had a black horse. We learn of this cosmology. We know that there's a hell. We know that there's a demon, you know, stuff like that. It's pretty general, basic sword and sorcery, Pulp Fiction type stuff. It's good, it's interesting, but it's mostly just window dressing until it becomes important, and then you learn about it. And it's really good. I quite like it. In terms of artwork, it's really, really good. It's like actually really, really amazing. Let me show you some of the artwork. So here's the artwork for the flashback. It has this like ochre, umbra kind of vibe to it. Here's what it looks like normally. Let me show you from something else so I don't spoil everything. Because I mean, I already told you all of the story, but you know what I mean. So there you go. There's some fan service, or you know, nudity and stuff like that. Because this is an adult title. There's I mean, every female character is really hot, and they do manage to convey this kind of like Frank Frazetta-esqueness, where, you know, the musculature that Frank Frazetta liked to draw was really plump, and so whoever did the art, what's his name, Stefano Martino, manages to convey that kind of plumpness, I guess, really, really well, and I like that a lot. So the artwork and the fan service is very, very good, and overall the story is also really, really amazing. I would rate this a 5 out of 5. I think you guys would like it a lot, and of course, if you like this, check out Barbaric, or if you've read Barbaric, definitely go and track this down. I think the first volume is going to be releasing here soon in December, I think, or maybe in January, and that collects these 4 issues plus 2 more, which are the short story The Sea Witch and the short story The Sorcerer, which I will be reviewing in separate videos. So yeah, that's all I have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Thank you guys very much for watching, and see you guys later.